Hey now, it's Brace for Impact, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert. And I'm going solo on that ass, but it's still the same. We're talking TNA wrestling. It is your favorite TNA podcast on the web. Brace for Impact. God, it's good to say that again. It has been a long time, man. It's been since April since I've been back. And I'm coming to you from the great American Southeast in South Carolina. I'm actually just on the like really close to the border. Like it takes me to get from South Carolina to the across the border to North Carolina. It's like a 10-minute drive. So I claim both Carolinas. I know that's not really like the cool thing to do in the Carolinas. You got to either be North or South. But I live in South Carolina, but I work in North Carolina. So I'm just gonna go ahead and claim both Carolinas. Um, but if I had to pick my favorite, I'm gonna go with the palmetto tree. There you go. That is um, the state logo for South Carolina. I got one of those things on my license plate. It's so cool. I dig it. I went from palm trees to palmetto trees, so that's not a bad trade off. I think not a bad trade off. If you're watching live, please hit us up in the chat. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Make sure you put down a comment. I would greatly appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to tonight. It's been since, like I said, it's been since April. The last podcast I did, I've been back for a few days, and I was really just trying to get my like sea legs under me. I was just trying to see if I could still have like have a conversation about wrestling. Um, self-doubt creeps in when you haven't done something in a while. And I want to give a shout out to brother Bert and brother Io over on the Body Slam Network. I called into their show a couple weeks ago, and it was funny. So Io always shares the link with me of whenever him and Bert go live, and I always share it because those are my boys. I love those guys. And but a lot of news had just broken, and I didn't really have a podcast at the time, and I wasn't even set up for podcasting, and so I told Io in the DMs, like, let me call in. He was like, you really want to call in? I was like, yeah, let me call in. So I called in and I rambled for like 20 minutes. And then after I got off the phone and I was in my truck, I was like, yeah, I think I still got it. So I could still talk TNA wrestling. We got some boys in the chat. What's up? We got Terrence Sullivan. Terrence Sullivan, how you doing, sir? Impact 88. Impact 88. He says, welcome back. It's good to be back, my brother. Alter the Squirrel. Howdy, howdy. What's up, man? Lucky Charm in the house. He says, welcome back, Mike. And then, of course, my boy, Io. And Bert will be back, I think, in a couple of hours. I think Bert is West Coast, so he probably hasn't even watched the show yet. So, Pat Kruger, what's up, man? My boy, Pat. But yeah, it's an exciting time. I'm super stoked to be back. Little housekeeping, just kind of give you guys the lay of the land of how this is going to work going forward. I used to do this show on like Saturday morning, Hawaii time. I would get up at like 5 in the morning, and then I'd start recording by like 6:30 after I had like a full pot of coffee. And I would do it like strictly for the Patreon. But we haven't done Patreon stuff. We haven't done anything for a while, and the Patreon's been paused. And so I'm trying to get people back into the Patreon. So starting next week, this is going to go back to the Patreon. It's probably going to look a little bit different because I'm a StreamYard. I'm on a free trial, and they want me to pay $438. I'm like, I'm just not doing that yet. I will eventually, but I'm holding out as long as I can. So next week I'll be live using some not so good software, but it'll be live on the Patreon, and everybody will get the show that way. And you guys can come in. It's $5 a month. I need to get that Patreon built back up so that way I can afford to buy StreamYard. So this is the teaser episode on YouTube. But don't worry, if you primarily check the show out on YouTube, the YouTube's not going away. It's still very much a part of what we're going to be doing. I will be clipping the show and then releasing clips as I get time. Like I said, I promised myself and my family that I'm not going to be obsessing over them doing it at like 4 a.m. anymore, but I would still get a healthy dose of YouTube clips out the way and making sure you guys get your Brace for Impact content. Because I know, look, not everybody's got, disposable income like that, to where they just want to drop $5 on me. It's like the same price as, you know, you would pay for, like, if you have a discount code like HBO Max or something. So I get that. $5 is like a lot to ask, and it adds up over time, and people got bills and shit. But you know, I too have to be able to afford to pay for the software. So yeah, shit ain't cheap. They doubled the price on me, and as you can tell, I'm still pretty fucking salty about it. But that is of very little importance right now. But yeah, next week, patreon.com/the Mike and JD show, we will be back behind a paywall and then releasing YouTube clips as necessary. And then this coming up Sunday, JD and I will be back. We'll be live on YouTube as we typically are. And then, but the following week, again, we'll be behind a paywall at that point. And so that way we can, you know, get our Patreon subscribers up. I think that's important. That's how we're able to do this, is through the Patreon. So and then of course the audio will go to Voices of Wrestling on Monday. They'll get the MP3 file, and they'll shoot it out. So if you just listen on Voices of Wrestling Network, that's not going to change. So you guys will still have access to that. But if you want like the full video, you want to do the interactive experience, you want it early and ad free and all that stuff, Patreon's where it's going to be at. But we're going to have tons of free content out no matter what. And I've been on YouTube, I think 3 times this week. So don't, like, YouTube, you guys are going to eat. Okay. So don't worry about it. Eli Samuel Rosario, what's up, dude? I appreciate you, man. Been a day one supporter of mine. So, but TNA Impact is back. Man, what has happened since April? I just want to go back through the months and just kind of hit on some of the bigger stories that happened since we last spoke. We last spoke after, I believe it was Rebellion, and Joe Hendry pinned Ethan Page to retain the World Heavyweight title, and I'm pretty sure that is the last time that motherfucker has won a wrestling match. They have been beating that guy like a drum. He shortly after that lost the belt to Trick Williams, and then he comes back to TNA. He loses to Frankie Kazarian, and what was the name of that pay-per-view? Was it Under Siege where he lost to Frankie? It was like almost clean too. Like, I think Frankie, it was like a chicken shit win, but it was like, you know, it's like, why is Frankie beating Joe? And then somehow Joe Hendry gets a title shot at Slamversary, and he loses there. He's the one that eats the pin in one of the worst main events I've ever seen in my life. He loses there. And then he comes back and then loses to Mustafa Ali, and now he's feuding with Eric Young, and he's very likely to lose against him too. I don't know if you guys know where this is going, but it's very much going that Joe Hendry's out of the company. So WWE has their hooks in him. He's been on like NXT almost every week. He's like working their house shows. I think he wrestled Miz this week at a house show in the UK. And they're very much starting him from ground zero, working his way up on the WWE roster while he's completing his dates. Very much like, you know, like Will Ospreay came into AEW with way more fanfare because he's fucking one of the best in the world, obviously. And there was a similar arrangement between AEW and New Japan, where New Japan let him go while he was under contract, announced that he had signed there, and then he started working dates, and he cleaned up some of the other independent dates that he had. He actually came to TNA for a few of those dates, and did all that, and then he reported to AEW full time. I get the feeling that's what's happening with Joe. He's like going to work both companies, and at some point, probably around Royal Rumble time, he just, much like Jordan Grace last year, he's going to be full-time WWE. And you know, and good for Joe. I think he fits there, you know, like he did a great job getting himself over. The song got over, and I never really felt like they booked him the way that they should have. I thought he should have been a dominant babyface champion a la John Cena, but they probably saw, I think what we're all kind of seeing now is that he doesn't have that in him, as far like to be your world heavyweight champion for a long period of time. And I felt like during the 3-way match with Trick Williams and Santana that he was a bit exposed. And then he wrestled Santana again like the following week on, like, it was live. I was in New York watching it actually live. They were in Rhode Island. And Santana was keeping such a high pace, and Joe just couldn't keep up. And it's like, there's levels to this game. Joe Hendry got himself way over. The kids love him, like teenagers love him. Grandmas probably love him. He's funny, he's charming. But as far as a main event world champion pro wrestler, he's just not that. So, that just isn't Joe. And that's okay. Like, he did a great job of getting himself over with the limp. Oh my goodness. Whoa. All right. I just kicked my camera. So I have a ring light and my phone is my camera. So I kicked the ring light. So, but yeah, Joe just he just doesn't have it to be that guy. I think WWE knows that, and they're bringing him in, and he's kind of working his way up from the bottom. As you can tell, he's doing the whole hiding in closets and hiding in cabinets and doing the clap whenever people say his name. Like, he's just redoing all that. So, so that's the state of Joe Hendry. So, he's very, very much out the door. Another big thing that happened while I was gone, I mean, we were just talking about Slamversary. Now, TNA will tell you that they broke the record for Lockdown, and I actually believe them. Now, I don't think they sold all those tickets. I'm pretty sure they had like a healthy chunk of comps, but they got, over 7,000 in a building, and that's incredible. That's freaking incredible. They essentially doubled the attendance from the previous Slamversary. They blew the doors off everything they've done this for the last decade. Huge house. And people were going to say, oh, well, they had WWE's help. Well, so fucking what? They leveraged their partnership with WWE and booked themselves a card that sold a ton of tickets. I don't see an issue with that, and they should be proud of being able to do it. And I know that they are. I know they had a documentary about the whole thing. People say, oh, well, they only sold that many tickets because they had AJ Styles. Good. They booked AJ Styles and they sold that many tickets. That's what a promoter does. If he has access to a talent that has a big name, you bring him in and you sell tickets. Back in the day, in the territory days, that was Andre the Giant. Like, you would call Vince McMahon Sr. if you had a big show that you wanted to sell extra tickets to. You would pay the booking fee, and then Andre the Giant would come to your show. Dusty Rhodes would come to your show. You call all your friends, the different promoters, and you would bring them over, right? That is a normal thing to do. People don't want to look at it that way. They want to say, oh, well, it's just WWE and TNA is leeching off of WWE, and we will get into that in a little bit. So they want to lessen the success of it, but I was like, now you're just an insecure person. If you just can't let these guys enjoy the fact that they had success, who cares if they used their WWE partnership to get there? They got there. That's all the fucking matters, is they got there, right? It doesn't matter. It's like saying if you had a concert, right? Like, say you're a rock band and you have a concert and you're having trouble selling tickets. And so you just call up James Hetfield from Metallica, say, hey man, are you busy? Would you want to come play a song with us? And we'll advertise you as being a guest appearance. And he's like, sure. And then you sell the place out. You got to hang in for the rafters. That's still awesome, right? Yes, you had to get James Hetfield to get to that point, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't still awesome. It's still awesome, right? So I think everybody needs to calm the fuck down. I believe they broke the record, right? I don't really think it's all that controversial to say that they broke their all-time North American attendance record, beating Lockdown 2013. Lockdown 2013, Bischoff and Hogan were in charge at the time, and a lot of people dispute the fact that they had over 7,000 people there. Some people say it's 6,500. But WrestleTix had them at just under 7,000 for Slamversary, right before bell time, and they were still getting people in the building as the show's going on, right? People going to the ticket window and buying tickets on the street. So I don't believe they had 7,600 people. I think that was probably the number that they decided upon before the show ever started. But I know for a fact they had over 7,000 people there. IO Productions was in the house, and he said overwhelming. They nearly filled that whole Well, no, UBS Arena can hold 17,000 people. I would pump the brakes on the whole arena, but they filled up a good portion of it. And for TNA, with their budget and their visibility to be able to do something like that, albeit they use the WWE partnership to get there. I think it's a huge success and it's a huge fucking win. I think it's incredible. Okay. Lucky Charm, are you going to go over ticket sales for the upcoming events? Well, since you asked, I guess I could. I don't have all the data, but I do have one data point here that I think is pretty cool. Since we'll just go over the show that we got coming up, and then if you guys in the chat have some statistics that you want to just drop my way, feel free. Feel free to do that. Feel free. But here's WrestleTix right now. So WrestleTix says Thursday, September 4th, so the live show in Minneapolis at the Armory. They got it set up for 1,043 tickets, and they've already distributed 803. That's a week out. That's going to sell out. Okay. And then he says down here, the Friday night is at 954. Clearly, that's going to sell out. I don't know if they can open that up more. I don't know the layout. Like, it looks like that's the layout here, and it says, let's see. Yeah, it doesn't really say like how many tickets you could sell to that show. Like if you were to open it up, I think it's a smaller venue. And I want to show you guys this here. This guy Clint Hardy, because I made the joke, of course. I got to tweak Dynamite or AEW fans because they're very sensitive, and it's always good for a gag. But I said Dynamite numbers, and of course he says 18,992. Oh no, you nearly made it. He's talking about like Arthur Ashe, or he's talking about the show in Australia. He doesn't understand because he's too stupid. I am talking about this week's Dynamite from the 2300 arena. So like he doesn't understand that. So I think that's hilarious. But let me stop sharing that. Oh, I went full screen here. Let me get back. Now we do know that Bound for Glory, they sold almost 3,000 tickets their first couple of days on sale. They blew past the original on sale, the early on sale for Slamversary. They've already opened up more seating. I think they're gonna get to they're probably gonna either get close to beating Slamversary, or they're going to actually beat Slamversary, because like that arena in Lowell, Massachusetts, you can get 10,000. And I poo-pooed the idea of them doing Bound for Glory in Lowell. Not that I have anything against, I actually like Lowell. I think that's a nice town. I spent a week there a couple years ago. I actually got a chance to meet Godilla while I was there. The legendary Godilla, #1 rapper in all of Massachusetts. I got to meet him. We actually went, I think we had pizza or something like that, but we had a good conversation. And, Lowell's a nice town. It's just, it's like 40 minutes from Boston. So I was like, why don't you just go to Boston? But the arena there in Lowell, I think, is more affordable for people, like for companies. And so a lot of people, like NXT just used it. NXT just used it, and they did less than 2,000 people. And for Heatwave, which that's one of their premium live events on Peacock. Yes, I said PLE, but that's what they call it. So fuck it. That's one of their bigger shows, and they did less than 2,000 tickets. And then TNA actually sold more than that in the early on sale. So I that's big. That tells me that, despite the fact that Access TV decided to move the television show to 9 p.m., I don't think anybody's actually watching the show, like on Access. It's a very small number of people. And we already know that there's only 22,000 subscribers to TNA Plus. So I don't think the TV show is actually getting a ton of visibility. But, with the help of the WWE partnership, people are willing to pony up a few shekels and willing to leave their house to go watch TNA live, right? And they want to go see the Hardy Boys, and they want to see Joe Hendry. And I think Mike Santana is doing a good job of getting himself over. They want to see him. They want to see Trick Williams. So, they're doing a really good job of marketing themselves and doing good grassroots marketing for the areas that they're going to. Minnesota is case in point. They're going to do over 1,000 tickets there, and not that long ago, I think they were not doing so hot, but they got boots on the ground and actually went and sold some tickets. They got Edmonton coming up for Victory Road next month, and they're already doing really good. Like they're pretty close to selling out already. They're probably going to open that up a little bit more and do pretty decent houses for both the paywall, the TNA Plus special, and the TV tapings that follow. And they're going to do it without the Hardy Boys because Jeff can't keep his shit together and he's not allowed to go to Canada, right? So I think it's awesome. Wild Koala said, I don't think more than 1,000 people watch the weekly show. I think you're making an attempt at comedy. But TNA said that recently that their numbers are hovering around 100,000. But we don't get the Nielsen report anymore, so it's like we can't really dispute it, and we can't prove it right, and we can't prove it wrong. So we've got to take his word for it. But I don't think it's too far off because he came with the TNA Plus numbers, and I got a DM from someone that used to work there that had those numbers. Like, I can't believe he actually reported the real number. It's like, I was like, that's the real number. It's like, yeah, it's the real number. It's like, it's 3 times the number that it was the year prior. They've done a good job of, building up that application, building up that streaming service. But he said the real number. So, and then he followed up by saying, yeah, we're hovering around 100,000. Right. So I get the feeling that's what they're doing. Oh man. So what else is new in the world of TNA? If you guys got a topic, I've been gone for months. I watched the show tonight. I thought it was a good show. I liked the main event. I liked the main event angle with Trick and Santana, or Trick and Santino and the lawyer. I like the opening match with Trick and AJ Francis versus Mike Santana and Steve Macklin. I thought that was a good match. In between all of that, like, it was just like normal TNA stuff. It wasn't anything spectacular. I'll go through the card and give my thoughts, but I thought overall it was a pretty good show. But I haven't been on the air in a long time. I want to talk some news. So if you guys got a topic you want to toss out my way, let me know and I'll touch on it. We are together for 30-40 minutes. It is 10:30 p.m. I do have to get up in the morning, and I'm working from home tomorrow, but I still get up at the same time. I keep my same routine. I still dress nice because I got to be on camera when you work remotely. And I got to take my daughter to school. School, it's like 7:30 or something like that. So I'll still be up at 5 in the morning, but I'll be up late with you guys on Thursday nights and Sunday nights. I'm talking shit about pro wrestling, man. Hell yeah, let's talk it. But so since I've been gone, rumors are running rampant that TNA is trying to sell, or Anthem is trying to sell TNA. And I'm here to tell you that that's probably true. And in fact, before I took my hiatus, I was told emphatically that Anthem was looking to get out. Okay. Not from anybody from Anthem or TNA or anything like that. Just like another person in the media said that they heard that Anthem was looking to get out and that WWE was interested in purchasing it. I pushed back on that idea. In fact, I shit all over it because I am of the opinion that would be a dumb thing for WWE to do, considering the multiple lawsuits that they've had against the TKOs had to pay off, and the fact that there's another lawsuit by Phil Davis against the UFC and TKO for fighter pay suppression and monopsony type business practices or monopoly business practices, and doing all that, right? I was like, that would be a dumb thing to do to buy the number 3 when you have these accusations being levied against you and all these lawsuits. But sure enough, then a report came out. I think it was Dave, and I believe Dave on this one because I have a guy that told me, yes, it's true that WWE, when they signed the contract with TNA to become partners, it was a similar contract that they had signed with the European promotions that said they have there's like an option to buy, and if they do try to sell, WWE can match that offer. and then it would become their property, right? There's also a 90-day out clause in the contract. Like if WWE doesn't like the way that the partnership is going, they can give like a 90-day notice, and then the partnership would be over, right? And all that stuff's out there, like it's all legit. So I believe that. But I think that was just the language they use in the contract. I don't think that they would actually act on that, because again, I get the feeling that would be a huge mistake by WWE to purchase it. And a lot of people agree with me on that one. So what would the alternative be if you're WWE and if you're Nick Khan and you want to control more of the marketplace and you have a goal of stifling the number 2, right? I don't think anybody has any, I don't think any serious person thinks that TNA could overtake the number 2 spot, even with WWE's help. But I think that TNA could stifle some of the growth of AEW if they were to get a TV deal, and we'll get on the TV deal in a minute. But if they were to get a TV deal, and if they were to become a well-funded company. So if you're Nick Khan and you're WWE and you're TKO, how would you go about doing that without getting yourself sued? Well, you would have one of your rich friends step in and take it over and tell them, like, if you take this and you buy this and like you're the money person, we will back you up. Meaning, like, we have this contract in place. We'll continue to honor the contract, and we'll keep feeding you talent, and we'll keep feeding you ideas. We'll help you get the TV deal. We'll do all this stuff. What we want you to do is to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and stifle the potential growth of AEW. And you're probably saying, Mike, how could they even stifle the growth of AEW? AEW has a $180 million or $185 million TV deal. They're selling well over 100,000 pay-per-views for their big shows. It looks like they're about to lock in a deal with HBO Max for their pay-per-view rights, for the streaming rights. I don't know if that's going to be like you still have to purchase the pay-per-views, or if like the events would just like on Peacock, or like on with UFC and Paramount, or with WWE and ESPN. Like, if that's just part of your subscription plan, or if it's another pay-per-view deal. I don't know if they're going to switch to the PLE model, but clearly they're going to be getting a lot of money for that. So and I agree with you. I don't think they could do much, but what they could do is say TNA is now a more well-funded company and they're able to get a TV deal, and they go into the market. And Io pointed out my own words to me from last year, from my end of the year show, where I predicted this, that TNA can go into a meeting with these television studios, these television networks, and say, here's what AEW can get you, and here's how much AEW is charging. If AEW wants to give you Shockwave, a 1 hour show, and they want, $50 million per year for that 1 hour show, I'm just tossing out a number. We can give you, that's what, 52 hours a week. We can give you 104 hours a week for $10 million, right? AEW could probably get you an average of 400,000 views per week on your network. And what we could get you is probably 250, right? So we can get you over half of the viewership, but at a fraction of the cost. And that's what I said. It's like $10 million. Those are my exact words. Well, Carlos Silva has been telling everybody that that's the price, $10 million. He set that out. I don't know that he watched my show and was like, hey, Mike, you're smart. I don't know that was the case, but I don't mind taking credit for it. But that appears to be the going rate for 104 hours of first run primary programming from TNA, right? And again, like, the Shockwave show would have been AEW's third television show. It never got off the ground. They fucking shot their shot. Transferring Heat loves it. Look, because I thought Shockwave was taking over SmackDown slot on Fox. Well, that's what Swerve thought. Somebody told Swerve that, and it turns out it was just a big swerve. They couldn't get the deal done. But that was my pitch for TNA, is like, go in there and like, that could be your pitch, right? And then, or you can go like, here's Collision, right? Collision getting you like 4 450, lower at times. Like I think at one point they were below 3. It's like that's their second brand, right? Here's what they're getting for it per hour. We can come in at a significantly lower rate, but we can get you over half. And then, oh, hey, by the way, we have Carlos Silva, who is from not only the world of MMA, but he's from the world of tennis, and he's managed networks, and the guy can get advertising, right? He knows how to get advertisers to come in and spend money, right? And he's done a good job with that. With the small audience that TNA has, he's been able to bring in some like decent advertising. And that would be the pitch, right? It's like instead of spending 75 on AEW for 400,000 viewers a week, we can do 250 for 10, right? On a good channel. I think if they got onto CW, I think that it'd be actually be quite a bit more than that. So but so how does that stifle TNA, or how does that stifle AEW? Well, it stifles them on their next deal, right? So it's like, hey, companies can look and say, hey, look, the going rate for TNA is this. This is the viewership that they're getting. Here's the ad rates that they're bringing in, and look at what we're spending. Why would we give you way up here when these guys right here are making this? And they could probably undercut the market that way and drive that price down. That would not affect WWE because they're a prestige brand. They're the big leagues. But WWE has done a pretty good job of making AEW seem like low rent, putting it out there that they're low rent. They got all of their friendly, they have all of their friendly podcasters and friendly media, putting that out there as well. And they're all promoting TNA as possibly being the number 2. Like it's all by design, right? It's all by design. And I get it, right? They want to build up the third brand to stifle the second brand, right? And if they somehow, some way get the third brand to become the new number 2, well, they have the number 2 inside the tent pissing out instead of outside pissing in, right? And if they can get their friend Lorenzo Fertitta to buy the thing, which that was the big story that came out a couple weeks ago. That's why I just needed to call into IO's show. If they can get him, now it becomes a well-funded like number 3 challenger to the number 2 that is WWE friendly. And the report is that whoever buys TNA would have to be WWE friendly per the like they have a contract, right? So they would have to, like, in order for WWE to sign off on it, they would have to be WWE friendly. There's nobody more TKO friendly than Lorenzo Fertitta, who once sold UFC to TKO, right? Who was childhood best friends with Dana White, who probably very likely is friends with Nick Khan, because Nick Khan's fucking friends with anybody, with everybody, right? So I think TNA getting a big TV deal and being built up by WWE helps both WWE and TNA, and could potentially, I'm not guaranteeing it. We could say all this stuff and then it doesn't affect AEW at all. Their next TV deal, they get, a 20% increase. I don't think they're going to get like a significant increase the way the WWE does. But I think it's possible they would just get a significant increase, and that TNA has no impact on it at all. Pardon my pun. So that appears to be the plan. If Lorenzo Fertitta and his brother Frank Fertitta, I believe they still own the company Zuffa, if they come in and buy this thing and they start pumping money into it, which is what they did with the UFC when they bought it, and it was like, when they bought the UFC was fucking dead. It was deader than dead. They couldn't get on pay-per-view. They had to buy TV time on Spike TV after Raw was over for the Ultimate Fighter. They had to make deals with Donald Trump to actually hold an event in in Atlantic City at the Trump Casino there. I think it was the Trump Taj Mahal. Billy, you probably know. You're up in that area, but yeah. So like it was deader than, and then they were willing to lose a lot of money because they just had this belief in Dana White to be able to get this thing going. And sure enough, their bet paid off. And Dave Meltzer had the report out that Lorenzo has always regretted selling UFC, because look at what UFC is now. They sold it for $4 billion. Now it's worth 12, right? And so if they buy TNA, it becomes a turnkey operation. You got TKO backing. It's automatically a profitable company. And if you pump money into it and you start to challenge AEW and you don't challenge WWE, you could probably have a long life until WWE is done with you, which is the problem with WWE. So there's that. But I think Fertitta buying TNA would be huge for pro wrestling. It would be huge for the wrestling landscape. I think building up TNA is actually a good thing for pro wrestling. I know stifling AW is bad, but having a third brand that's well funded, and you would assume that meant pro wrestlers would get more money, but UFC has a history of not paying people very much. But I think that the rising tide would then help out a lot of the TNA wrestlers who now they have another place to negotiate for contracts with. They have, they can negotiate against AEW. I don't think that TNA and WWE would compete for talent. I think if WWE ultimately wanted a talent, TNA would just back off. But when WWE is done with a talent, they could, TNA could be another landing spot for them where they can probably get paid pretty well, as opposed to going to AEW where they probably don't fit in, right? Like your Matt Cardonas and your Brian Myers and Braun Strowmans and all these guys, they don't fit in AEW. They do fit in TNA, but TNA can't afford, they can afford Myers and Cardona obviously, but they can't afford a guy like Braun Strowman. They just can't, right? They can afford a guy like Dolph Ziggler, but they can't afford to have him full time, which is why he misses so many dates. Man, my camera is shaky. I gotta keep my hands off the table. But so there's that. And I don't feel bad for AEW one fucking bit. I just don't. I like AEW. I like Tony Khan. I think Tony Khan's good for pro wrestling. I think he's done a good job with that company. He's built up a great company. I think they have a great TV show. I think they have great events, and they've done a good job of being a challenger brand to WWE. I think they ultimately fell short. They had WWE kind of on the ropes a little bit, and the WWE blew past them. And then they ended up blowing it with Cody, and then the big thing that really fucked with AEW was they blew it with CM Punk, and now WWE is so far ahead. I just don't think that AEW will ever catch up unless something drastic happens. So AEW is such a well-funded company, and Tony Khan and the Khan family have openly bragged about how they have more money than everybody. So TNA getting more funding, getting a bigger TV deal at their expense, I don't feel fucking bad for them one bit. I think TNA getting more money, getting bigger is a good thing. And I don't care if AEW fans get hurt feelings over it. I just don't give a shit. I think that's a good thing for pro wrestling. You need a strong number 3, right? You need a strong number 3. Okay, let me get to the chat. I do want to talk TV deal, but I see a lot of people in the chat here. Let's see. Stephen Patrick, isn't Shockwave an NWA show? I think it is. Yeah, I think they have a show called The Shockwave. Billy, MLW filed an antitrust lawsuit in 2022 claiming WWE pressured TV streaming partners not to work with them. That case is still active. I thought that they settled that case, Billy. That's how MLW is able to afford, Baron Corbin. It's because they settled that case. They get like $22 million, something like that. Transfer heat. Carlos said he'd expect him to do around 400 to 500K. If they do that, that would be great. CW would be doing cartwheels. They ain't got shit on that network during the week. Yeah, they would be doing cartwheels. I think I would say sub 4 if they got on CW. TNA is still like a tainted brand. Not as much as it used to be, but it's like you put the WWE logo on it, like you're automatically going to get like over 5, right? But because it's got the TNA logo on it, people are going to think that it's less than, and a lot of people just aren't going to watch it because of that. So I don't think he's like that far off, but you got to remember he's also a promoter and he's trying to get a TV deal done. So, let's see. Billy says fighters sued UFC alleging monopolization of MMA. They went forward with class action showing athletes, competitors can use civil suits also. The wrestlers could also file class action. I don't think you can get wrestlers to agree on anything because they're just like fucking not real people, but MMA fighters are like, a lot of these are like big time college athletes and big time sports stars. And they were able to band together for a lawsuit that actually worked. Right. I just don't know that wrestlers can get that done. They're too full of their own shit. They're too busy living in make-believe land. It's possible, But I think the more likely scenario, and Brandon Thurston was all over his Twitter the other day, practically begging and pleading Tony Khan to sue. He was like laying out the case for him in tweet form. It was pretty funny. And he actually made a lot of good points. Like WWE's fucked with AEW pretty bad. You know, like WrestlePalooza coming up, like that. Like that's not illegal. I don't know that you could sue for someone running head to head with you, but it is kind of like it happens all the time. And I know AEW did it to TNA, but it's happening so often now that it's very clearly targeting them. I just don't know that it's illegal. I just don't know that they would have a case, right? And if they did, say Tony Khan did sue WWE for antitrust reasons, for building up, like if say they don't buy TNA, but TNA gets a TV deal and it comes out that WWE helped them, right? And then Fertitta does buy it, and like they're WWE friendly and WWE helped broker that deal. WWE's counter argument is like to that. It's like, what do you mean antitrust? Look how well they're doing. AEW, they have a $185 million TV deal. They're selling their pay-per-view rights. They got TV deals all over the world. They're a highly profitable and successful company. They just did well over 25,000 in a baseball stadium for all in. They went to like the UK for Forbidden Door, did like 18,000. And they're doing another big house in Toronto. It's like, what do you mean? How could we be stifling that? Like that would be the argument. And then say, oh, and by the way, we're not an antitrust because look how we're helping TNA. We helped them get a TV deal. They're selling the most tickets they've ever sold in the history of their company, even better than when they were on Spike TV getting over 1 million viewers a week. They're doing better than that. And here we help them get this TV deal because we're not committing antitrust, right? That would be the counter argument. So I think that would be a tough case. I would like to see them go for it because it'd be content for the show. I just don't think that they got a case. Let's see. Lucky Charm, if Lorenzo buys TNA, do you think it'll eventually feel way too corporate and suck the life out of the product like TKO has done with WWE? So the thing about Lorenzo Fertitta is that when he bought UFC, they cleaned it up, but they didn't make it corporate. UFC, that never happened with that. So that's just not in his history, right? They did try to make it sponsor friendly. They did a good job. They ended up getting rid of like all of the dirty, grimy sponsors. Like when you would watch TNA or UFC back in like 2002, they would have like Condom Depot signs on around the cage and all these crazy sponsors that they would have. But they like as they started to get more popular, they cleaned it up. But I think the guy that's actually turned TNA into looking more corporate has been Carlos Silva because that's his background. That's his history. He's cleaning up TNA, trying to make it more presentable to sponsors, right? Which is why we're not seeing all the blood that we had seen before because, when you're a smaller company, you have a harder time selling advertising to these big sponsors. AEW can get away with all the blood because they're not reliant on sponsorships, but TNA they're not getting TV revenue. So they need the sponsorships. So that's why he's cleaned that up. So I think they're kind of already going that way. I don't think that I think Fertitta is more of a, he's probably not even a wrestling fan. He just sees something that he could sell to a television station, and his name. I think if they buy it before the TV deal gets done, I think the TV deal gets better just because networks would be more willing to take a bigger financial risk on a company owned by the Fertitta brothers versus these fucking clowns at Anthem. Anthem hasn't been able to sell shit for TNA. Like they've been trying to shop that thing forever, and they have not done anything. So, Legacy. Excuse me. By January, do you think Santana resigns with TNA or leaves? I think that's an interesting question. It's a good question. Thank you for asking that. I think he stays. I do. And maybe that's just me being optimistic. I don't see a good reason for Mike to go to WWE at this point. I think that he really likes being a top guy, and if he went to WWE, he would kind of be knocked down several rungs, right? They wouldn't see him as a top guy right away. He would have to earn his way. I think he would probably be better off staying in TNA and being their top guy for 2 years, especially if they do get the TV deal. Okay. And Io says he thinks he'll stay. Transfer Heat says, I'm sure we'll see some AAA on TNA sooner rather than later. Yeah, I get the feeling that we will. Okay. How can AEW be getting 130 million for 6 to 700k viewers, but TNA couldn't find a decent network after Spike where they were doing 900k? Well, you're thinking more along the lines of the numbers, but you got to put yourself back into the context of 2014. TNA was a toxic fucking brand by the time they lost Spike, right? They got picked up by Destination America, but like they went from like making a significant rights fee to basically getting nothing. They had to slash the budget significantly, and then they lost that deal after a year and got onto Pop TV, which is actually a bigger channel. But still, I think it was more of an ad split for that, and it was because the TNA name had just gotten so toxic, right? Like networks just didn't want to mess with it. Other wrestling companies don't want to, like New Japan didn't want to work with TNA after it had even been sold. Like Scott D'Amore and Rocky Romero had to go like beg and plead to get the two companies to work together again. The name TNA just became toxic, right? But it's not toxic anymore. They got the nostalgia thing going on. Switching the name from Impact Wrestling to TNA, even though I was against it, was one of the great decisions that Scott D'Amore ever made. And it's really launched this company into like this next level. I still don't think they're profitable because they don't have TV revenue coming in, but I think they're working towards getting there once they get that TV deal. Stephen Patrick, with Lorenzo backing TNA, they could get a rights deal similar to AEW's in a few years. That would be pushing it, man. Carlos Silva, it's probably a mistake for Carlos to say that $10 million is their price because that's what people are going to see them as for a while. You typically don't go from 10 million and then in a few years get to 180 million. That's not really how that works. They might get more than 10 on their next deal, but they're probably not jumping up that way. Let's see. Billy, if TNA became a friendly partner to WWE TKO instead of a true competitor, that would almost certainly hurt wrestler salaries rather than help them. I agree to an extent. I do think that the floor raises for some of these guys getting into TNA. I think that floor raises. I think they would be able to like the people that are the company that, and poach is the wrong word, but the company that signs more talent off the TNA roster than anybody is AEW. So if TNA is more well funded, they can fend off AEW from taking their talent, right? I think that's what it is. But I do think that you're right. Like TNA and WWE won't compete for talent. But if somebody, like I said, if somebody leaves WWE like a bigger name star, TNA becomes a better option for them, especially with their style. They would probably fit in way better with TNA, and they still would have that relationship and that bridge to the WWE. I think that becomes a better thing. So I understand what you're saying, Billy. I just think that overall it would be a good thing. I could be totally wrong. Like this whole thing could just fucking shit the bed. So let's see. Alter the Scroll. I'll never feel bad for billionaire. Yeah, me either. Yeah, I don't care about their feelings. They're too rich to have feelings. Yeah, this ain't about AEW. It's about TNA climbing back for sure. All right, guys. I'm gonna get into the TV deal talk. I've talked about it a couple of times this week. I don't want to harp on it too much. I get the feeling they're gonna sign with CW and Peacock. That's my hunch. I had my buddy tell me that Nick Khan wanted. Nick Khan has known for a while that WWE was leaving Peacock, and that he was going to try and get TNA and AAA onto Peacock. Right? I think that Peacock, I can see them like. I don't think it's off the table for them to do an all-inclusive deal with TNA, where they get the weekly show and all the pay-per-views. I think the better thing for them would to be just get the big shows, right? And then they can Peacock would essentially have advertising if TNA were to go to CW and get like the 400,000 to 500,000 that Carlos Silva thinks that he can get. So there's that. So that's what I'm thinking. But like I said, I've said it a few times. I would not count out Paramount, especially if Lorenzo Fertitta buys a thing. I think that there's, the history there. I know that the new owner of Paramount was not the guy that owned Spike TV back in the day. Like, they're different people, but there is that history there. And UFC is currently got the deal with Paramount. I think pro wrestling and MMA being on the same streaming services would be good, and I think they would help each other out, much like they did back in the day. Um, let's see. Io says Gerald, I think he means Gerard from Body Slam, our buddy, big new distribution deal, Gerard, says either Peacock, CW, Paramount. I don't know that he's got an inside source on that one. Hold on, let me look at my group chat. Let me see. Has he sent me a message saying, "Hey, look, I got this scoop"? Nope, he hasn't sent me a message to say he's got the scoop. I think he's more speculating, kind of like what I'm doing too. Okay. But I don't think he's reporting that. I think that's his opinion. So me and him talk. We have a similar opinion about this, and we have a mutual friend that is that thinks that it's probably Peacock. So we shall see. We shall see. Okay, if you got more topics, let me know. I'm on here for a little bit longer than I gotta. Man, it's almost 11 o'clock. I gotta get going. But this has been fun, man. I am so excited to be back. I'm glad to be back. Hold on. I think I had one more question up here that I wanted to get to. Okay. Will we get a date for the Mike and JD show return? I think you missed the beginning of the show. We'll be back on Sunday, 10 p.m. Eastern time. That's when we'll be back. And we'll have a lot to talk about because we're going to cover like 3 months worth of topics. And we're going to try to get it done in an hour. So we're going to stick to our hour. We don't like to go longer than an hour. I think if we go longer than that, it just drags. We've done shows, like we've done 2-hour shows before, and they ended up being pretty good, but for the most part, like I think nobody wants to spend that much time listening to two guys talk wrestling. The only guys that can really get away with it are Joe and Rich from the Voices of Wrestling. Like they do a good job going. Like they've gone like 5 hours before. I just ain't got it in me. I just ain't got it in me, man. Just can't do all of that. Last topic I want to talk about before I get to tonight's show, I'm just gonna do a quick rundown, and a quick review of tonight's episode. There's this narrative out there that WWE is using TNA. And I'm here to tell you that is true. WWE is 100% using TNA. And one of the main reasons why they're using TNA is to, again, stifle AEW. Like, I don't even think anybody's denying that. The Hardy Boys straight up told Ariel Helwani that on the podcast. That it's like, yeah, that's why they're partnering with TNA. They want to stifle AEW. And I think that makes sense, right? They just like they got to fucking knock these guys down a peg, right? And AEW suffers for it, and TNA benefits for it, and then hopefully one day it all pays off for the wrestlers. We'll see. I don't know. Tony seems like he's got that fighting spirit when it comes to like he's not gonna back down from these fucking guys. So we'll see. We'll see if like All Out, if he moves his time slot. I think he should have some balls and go head to head with WrestlePalooza. I think he should be like fuck Brock and fuck John Cena. Let's just go. Let's go head to head and just see what happens. I think he should do it. Just to see, hey, look, he's bragged about all the money he's got. I just want to see him. I want to see him do it. I know for me, I personally would prioritize All Out, and then for WrestlePalooza, I'd probably only watch Cena and Brock. But that I just happen to prefer AEW's brand of wrestling versus WWE's. Some people disagree. Some people prefer WWE's, so they would watch WWE and probably check out All Out later. I know most of us in this chat aren't paying for All Out. We're going to, you know how we're gonna watch it. You know how we're gonna watch it. Pirates, right? So, either way, like, and I'm not paying $30 for WrestlePalooza either. So, a bunch of pirates in the chat tonight. I can see the piracy now. I could see all the pirates out there. We're all alike. So, yeah, they're definitely using TNA. I don't think anybody's even denying that. But guess what else is true? TNA is 100% using WWE. This is a symbiotic relationship, right? This is not a parasitic relationship. TNA is not being abused in any way. TNA, and people are saying, oh, TNA is they're being cucked, right? Because they lost both their titles. Ash by Elegance has the Knockouts Championship, which we'll talk about in a minute. But they're being cuckolded and this and that. Maybe they are. When it comes to the on-screen storyline that they're doing right now with NXT getting the belts and all, and Trick Williams doing his thing, right? Maybe they are on television, but TNA doesn't give a fuck. They like it, right? And I've seen enough videos where some cucks like being cucks, right? And TNA is fine with it. They were fine being cucked by AEW back in the day because they felt like they were getting some, something good out of AEW too. I agree. I think that they were, right? The relationship ended poorly, but for a while there, like TNA was getting decent visibility there. They don't mind it, right? They were happy that Kenny Omega came and won their title and was carrying it around and didn't really give a shit about it, right? That's kind of what's been happening with WWE and TNA. Like, Joe Hendry goes on there, looks like a fucking goof against Randy Orton, gets beaten a minute, and then gets his ass whipped afterwards while holding the TNA title. WWE on their main show kind of like they do WWE. I'll tell you one thing that WWE does that AEW doesn't do, that never did for TNA, is they're actually promoting TNA, right? They promoted TNA at SummerSlam, right? They promoted Bound for Glory at SummerSlam. They always are promoting TNA shows. When WWE talent is on a TNA show, WWE goes out of the way to promote the show, right? And so TNA is like, fucking beat our talent. We don't care. Just promote us, right? It's like they're happy with it. And then they see the crowds they got and they're happy with it. So I'm like, I'm not going to be mad for them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't work there. I'm not a member of the roster, right? They like being cucked. Let them get cucked. Like, who cares, right? It's and they feel like it's beneficial to them. Some cucks like being cucked, right? And I just get the feeling that TNA is like, cuck us all you want, right? Just make sure that those houses are full, the pay-per-views are up, and help us get that TV deal. TNA is 100% using WWE right back. They're allowing their people to get beat. I get the feeling Mike Santana's winning that title back at Bound for Glory, by the way, and I think it's going to be 1-on-1 straight up, and it's just going to be a clean pin. That's my read on it. I think that's what's going to happen. I would be surprised. I would be surprised if that wasn't the case. But and that's going to be a big house too. So there's like let's go, right? WWE or TNA is absolutely using WWE. Because every meeting they go into for these TV deals, they're bringing that piece of paper, that contract that they signed with WWE, and they say, look, this is what we're bringing to the table. Not only do we have our brand, but we've got WWE backing. And then they're going to show a video reel of all the WWE stars that have been airing in crossover on TNA television. And most importantly, they're going to show AJ Styles' return at Slamversary in front of 7,600 people screaming and going crazy. They probably had some TV execs in the building that night. TNA is also using WWE. They're using each other. That's called a partnership. It is a symbiotic relationship. At no point is anybody upset with what's going on. Both companies are happy. And for the most part, both fan bases are happy, unlike the one with AEW, because AEW did not want anything. Their fan base just didn't want anything to do with TNA. They just didn't want it. And TNA fans fucking hate AEW. It's like they resent the creation of AEW, because when AEW got created, they signed all the fucking TNA talent and took the entire production staff, right? Like, we all knew, like, that happened, right? So AEW TNA fans were like super salty about it. And then while they were partners, AEW was like signing up their talent. They signed up Deonna Purrazzo and Big Bill, right? Like, it's a real thing. So that's why the two fan bases were not compatible. They don't like the same things. They were at odds, right? TNA did end up getting a little bit of money out of the deal with a couple of the pay-per-views and a couple of a couple of the big ratings they got out of Kenny Omega, but that's all it was. So and it didn't really last long. This WWE partnership is an enduring partnership. They got it on paper. They're advertising the hell out of TNA. And ultimately, at the end of the day, they're going to help TNA get a TV deal. I fully believe that's what's going to happen. That's definitely going to happen. So, and if that happens, then I don't think anybody can say anything negative about the partnership other than like WWE is bad. They're an evil corporation and they're hurting AEW. And the only people that are going to say that are probably hardcore AEW fans, because they're very protective over AEW. Very protective. And I get it. Look, TNA fans are protective over TNA. WWE fans are protective over WWE. I just don't care if people get their feelings hurt about this stuff. I just, I don't care. I don't give a fuck. All right. Looks like I got a couple more questions, man. Alter the Squirrel says, I don't kink shame. Yeah, it's like, let them be, let the cucks be cucks, man. If they're happy, let them be happy. Shit. Nicholas Riley, how likely do you see Killer Cross and Scarlett back in TNA by early 2026? I don't see it. I really don't see it. They, at least not while it's being owned by Anthem. Now, if Anthem sells it and like we got a new owner, and those NDAs are still sealed that happened back in 2019, then I could see it, but I just don't see it while because of that case that happened, and nobody wants to talk about it because there's NDAs. But there was like Killer Cross went public on TNA and tried to burn it down to get out of his contract because he had a WWE deal in hand. Scarlett Bordeaux did not, right? She didn't, but Killer Cross did. He like went public, and that was something that they just didn't want to do. They didn't want him to do, and I think that the people that own the company are still salty about that. I would be surprised if they came back. I don't think Killer Cross is any good. I think he peaked years ago. And he never got any better, and he's only gotten older. So I don't see, I don't see why you would bring him in. I don't think that he's a very good wrestler. I think he got a little bit Twitter famous for a little bit, and he has the backing of certain media members out there that he's been friends with. I just don't think he brings much to the table. I just wouldn't sign the guy. There's so many better young talent out there that they can focus on. Right. I think so. All right, let's get to this TNA show. I did watch it. I watched the whole thing, with exception to I did not check out Tasha Steelz versus Amara Sade. I didn't get a chance to watch that one. I had the kids, right? So, but I got it. The opening match was Mike Santana and Steve Macklin defeating Trick Williams and AJ Francis. Mike Santana got the roll-up victory over Trick Williams, which is now going to lead him to getting a title shot at Bound for Glory. They tried to announce it at the end, but obviously what happened there. I thought that was a really good match. I thought the crowd was hot for it. Let me see. I think Billy said it. Billy said it best. Trick as champ has been great for TNA business, so I'm not certain he loses. I think he is going to lose. I think he's ready to go to the main roster now. I think they've drug out his NXT tenure long enough. I don't think he is a great worker yet, but I think once they put him on the main roster and he gets in there with some of those great workers, I think that he'll get better. I think the guy just has it. I do. I think he's really good. He's just not a great worker yet. He has to be carried. I think Santana can carry him. So, but Trick has beaten Santana a couple times. Obviously, he got the pin over Joe Hendry, but he did beat him on NXT. He pinned Joe Hendry at Slamversary. It's time to put the title on Mike Santana. I think he's going to beat Trick, and Trick goes back to. I think Trick then he might do something with NXT, but I think he's got to go to the main roster. Right? He's wasting his time. I think he's big enough to go to the main roster and do big things. Let's see. And then we had we had the Inspiration taking on what is the name of those girls with the JC Jane? Fatal Attraction. Is it Fatal Attraction or Fatal Influence? What the hell's their name? You guys tell me. But Inspiration won. Is it just me or the Inspiration just not over? It seemed like they're okay. Fatal Influence is the name. I don't think that they're over. I thought that they would be way more over than they are, but Baltimore did not seem to care about these girls at all. It's probably what happens when they've been gone for a long time. They were gone for a few years. The last time they were in TNA, they were really over. Last time they were in TNA, but the crowds are much smaller, and they were right off WWE television. And then they retired. So yeah, they're not over. They got to work hard to get themselves over. Billy says they're not over, and they're older and slower, right? So Legacy. I'll end with this discussion on Roger Jackson. Yeah, I'll talk about it, but me and JD are going to cover that on Sunday. We're gonna cover that on Sunday. And then we had then we had Eric Young. He defeated Myron Reed. I thought the match was okay. the story of the match is really there's like this big guy with big muscles in the crowd saying that a cleansing is coming. Is he going to be taking laxatives? Is that what they're talking about with the cleanse? I can't tell what's going to go on there. But conspicuous by their absence was Sinner and Saint. Those guys just never really TNA's never let them win a match, right? And they're these little guys that do really good matches. I think they're being miscast as these like hyenas when really they just, it's okay to let good wrestlers go out there and have good matches, right? And then build the character over time. But they just threw them as Josh Alexander's lackeys, and now they've been transferred over to Eric Young. And it's like, these guys can actually work. I know they're super tiny. They don't have a ton of personality, but they can work. Like let them go have good matches. But I am, I don't know. I don't know if these guys are going to work out here in TNA. I wouldn't be surprised if they're gone. So we also got Eddie Edwards taking on Dolph Ziggler's little brother. He beat his ass. It was actually kind of a entertaining deal there that they did. Amara Sade and Tasha Steelz. Who won between Amara Sade and Tasha Steelz? Everybody, let me know. I don't know who won that match. I missed that match. And let me know if it was any good. I don't know. But I tell you what was good. The main event. The Hardy Boys, say what you want about the Hardy Boys, man, but their matches are fun. They do a good job. They got their characters down. They're super over with the crowd. And then obviously Cedric Alexander and Leon Slater. Cedric's doing this whole thing where he's like manipulating Leon. Cedric can't win a match to save his fucking life right now. He's definitely not under contract. They just keep beating the guy. I don't know how much longer he's going to be around. That's the tough thing for Cedric. I think he's a great wrestler. I was hoping that they'd signed him. It does look like he's signed. He just keeps losing. But I thought the match was pretty good. Okay, so everybody's telling me that Tasha Steelz won the match. Order 4 interferes, Agent Zero, clothesline Mara Sade. That's right. I picked up at that point, and that's when the Hardys came out, and then they started the main event. Yeah, I remember that now. And it looks like Sinner and Saint, they were not at the Baltimore tapings. At some point during the show, I must have missed it, but Eric Young attacked Joe Hendry, and so now it looks like they're going to do Joe Hendry and Eric Young at Victory Road. And if Eric Young's starting a new faction where he's cleansing the company, he's probably winning that match because Joe Hendry can't win matches right now since he's leaving. So TNA, they have to beat people for 6 months before they leave. So and the main event was actually like, I know they had the main event match, but and that was a good match. But the closing show segment, I think they were smart to close with Trick Williams. The guy's super over, right? He's not over as a heel either. He's over as a babyface, but the guy's over. Crowd goes crazy for the guy. They love his song, and he'd come out and said that he brought out his lawyer, said he wasn't going to wrestle for the next 50 days. And then Santino Marella does the math, and he's like, in 50 days, it's bound for glory. And he's about to make the match with Mike Santana. Then the lawyer interrupts him, and Santino gets out the Viper, and he hits the Viper on Santino. And then that's how they close the show. I thought that was a fun way to close the show. I thought like beginning to end the show was really fun. Like I said, I missed the Tasha match, but I thought other than that, I thought everything was actually like pretty good. Even like Inspiration, I know they're not over, but I kind of dig their act. It just, the crowd wasn't into it. So that part dragged a little bit, but overall I thought it was actually a pretty good show. And I'm looking forward to next week in Minneapolis, Minnesota. They're going to go live in the Armory. I wish they would have done the Mall of America. I think that would have been cool, but they did not do that. I've been trying to talk them into that for years, but they ended up not going that route. All right. So I did get a question about Raja Jackson. All right. Me and JD are going to get into Raja on Sunday. What I will say is that was one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. Raja belongs in prison. He should go in prison for a long time. Psycho Stu is an idiot for hitting the guy in the head with a beer can and not knowing what was going on because he thought that Raja was a wrestler and he was trying to work an angle with the guy, hit him in the head with a beer can. He's outside in a tent in a parking lot at some shitty show with his shirt off, belly hanging out, and hits a guy in the fucking head with a beer can. I thought that was like not a smart thing to do. But that doesn't mean that he deserved to get punched in the face 23 fucking times by this idiot, Roger Jackson. So the guy's a psychopath, belongs in prison. And I hope that the authorities catch up to that guy soon. And I hope everybody presses charges. I hope Stu presses charges because that was bullshit. Like maybe he deserved like 1 or 2 punches, but like 23, it's ridiculous. And he should have punched him when he knew it was coming, right? It's like Stu was in a wrestling match. He was working. And he doesn't know that the punches are coming. So that, like, you're getting a blindside attack, right? That's coward shit. From a guy that's an MMA fighter whose dad is one of the greatest MMA fighters to ever live, Rampage, one of my favorites. The whole thing was disgusting. And I hope, not only do I hope Raja Jackson goes to jail, I hope AJ Mana, the guy that was spinning up Raja and brought him backstage. I hope that guy never gets booked again. I think he should be done with pro wrestling. I know he just got fired from a shoot job too. But I've never heard of the guy, and I hope I never hear from him again. I hope that Doug Malo, the guy that saved Stu's life, I hope that guy gets booked on big shows and makes some money. I think he deserves it. He's like one of the few good people in pro wrestling, and apparently was the only guy on that show that knew how to fight and that had any balls to go and save this guy who was clearly being murdered in front of a crowd, in front of children. Like a man was getting murdered in front of children, and only one guy in that entire fucking building decided he had balls to make the save, and it was Doug Malo, right? I hope Knox Pro goes out of business and they never do another event again. The whole setup was disgusting. They're an embarrassment to professional wrestling. And yeah, they were a WWE ID branded promotion because it's owned by Rikishi, who wasn't there. But I hope that that just goes away completely. So I just hope that company goes out of business. They don't belong in business. They didn't have medics on scene. They had nothing. And they had no tough guys in that locker room other than fucking one. And they let this guy come in. And then the locker room didn't do shit about it other than Doug Malo. They let the guy just walk out. They should have held him. Like I had said in a live stream the other day that they should have jumped his ass. But, it's like fucking 2025. You don't want to jump somebody. But they should have at least detained him until the cops got there, showed him the fucking video so that way he can go to jail, right? But now, some of them are not even going to press charge. They don't even want to talk to the police. So I don't know, man. It's a shitty situation. But I hope some people go to prison, and I hope some of the vets that are defending Raja's actions, I hope they come to their fucking senses too, because they're embarrassing themselves. So that's what I got to say about it. I'm anxious to hear what JD has to say. But guys, this has been fun, man. It's been great being back. Head over to patreon.com/the Mike and JD Show. I would greatly appreciate it. And until next time, mahalo.